Wednesday, June 18th. It's easy when you get the date right. A lot of stuff going on. Meet the new champs, the same as the old champs, and the only people that could score on South Fort Lauderdale Beach Boulevard right now would be the New York Yankees. The party has started early for the Florida boys as they do it again last night in decisive fashion. And to be perfectly honest with you, my brother, I can't really say that any of us are all too surprised. That team was a freight train. I thought the Oilers were going to give us a little bit more, go out at least fighting. And Evander Kane went out slashing, and that was about the only fight the Oilers showed last night.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story we can get into. But listen, Kachuk threw out the word dynasty. I mean, they got there 3 years in a row. That's hard to do. Now let's see if they can get 3 in a row. And that would put them in some elite company. But
yeah, and we're gonna obviously talk about that, and we're gonna take you through a couple of things today. No TJ today; he'll be back with us tomorrow. Got some thoughts on the PGA Tour, some interesting comments from Scotty Scheffler today. We're also going to take a look at some of the division leaders in Major League Baseball. The big story in baseball last night, Rafi Devers makes his debut for the Giants in their god-awful, hideous City Connect uniforms that look like rejected kindergarten projects. The Red Sox lose their first game in the post-Devers era last night. They got dumpered. Walker Buehler got dumpered last night in the Pacific Northwest. So lots to talk about. Liquid locks, I got a little greedy yesterday. I took down our ship, so we're looking to bounce back there. We're still 0 for dingers for the year. Damn balls. Quit screwing with my balls, Major League Baseball. And I got one of my wishes. So a lot to talk about today, Mac, but the elephant in the room is the rat on the ice, and the Stanley Cup stays exactly where it ended last year. The Florida Panthers 5-1, and as I said, absolutely decisive fashion. And I think the most impressive thing that's come out of it so far is Brad Marchand today. He had a coffee, he had a drink, he had an elbow beer, he had a cigar, he had the cup on his lap. Those are the kind of scenes that are already going on in Fort Lauderdale. The elbow room was popping this morning. I'm pretty sure, as Bill Zito said on Pat McAfee's show just about an hour or so ago, that there might be some mattresses tossed down on the apartments above that place. But a well-deserved party for the champs, the back-to-back champs.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, when you get teams like this, these, in essence, these dynasty teams, these teams that, win back to back, now, as you said, 3 years in a row, they've been to the finals. I mean, it's a lot of fun to see what they've done. To take someone like Brad Marchand, who probably, his picture was up in the locker room before he got there, as make sure this guy, most wanted is what he was, most wanted. I mean, hated by that organization, for everything, for him versus with Boston, and then to be able to make that trade. And we joked a little bit about the Red Sox and the whole alignment and the culture thing. There's a team that has alignment. There's a team that has culture. To bring in this, like a Seth Jones, and to bring in a Marchand, and to mix and blend with what they've got there. The way they went about, we, again, on the show talked about who's going to be the second person to touch the cup, and to let those guys who had not won a Stanley Cup go before, anybody on the team. Again, that just shows you the level of class that organization has.
Yeah, and absolutely. And again, I'm glad you brought up the alignment, because when you look at this organization top to bottom, from the ownership group spearheaded by Vinny Viola, Bill Zito, the GM, and Paul Maurice, the head coach, I mean, that is a group that is 1,000% in complete alignment right now. And Bill Zito, when he was interviewed for the job, and he said this morning on McAfee's show, that, let's make this a destination franchise. And that's exactly what they've done. And we're not going to really look at the offseason today. We're going to keep the focus on where it should be with the two teams that got there. And to the Oilers' credit, getting back to the Stanley Cup after losing it is just as impressive as winning it in back-to-back years. And a lot of people now are questioning Connor McDavid's legacy, and how we feel alignment as a show. Like, talking about legacies while we're still playing is the most idiotic exercise in all of sports media right now. But, people like, oh, where's McDavid going to go and blah, blah, blah. People are going to go to Edmonton because they want to play with McDavid. I know he's only got 1 year left on his contract, but the Oilers are just as impressive in getting back there. But this Panthers machine, and I think that's the best way to describe it, it's Viola, Zito, and Maurice. And those guys and the culture that team's built. You cannot put a price tag. There is no salary cap. There is no apron and whatever other term you want to use on culture and what the results of culture are. And whether you hate them or you love them, the Florida Panthers are the benchmark, I think, across all sports right now.
Yeah, I mean that's really a good point. I mean, and they've done it the right way. You go to a Stanley Cup championship, you lose, and you learn from that. You make your adjustments, and then you've won the last 2 years, and it's hard to remember back even to the beginning of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, they were down to Toronto 0-2. Like, and people were starting to wonder, like, oh, is this where it's going to end? Is this going to be Toronto, kind of funny, Toronto season, for them to get to the cup? But this is just a team that, I talk a little bit about it with basketball. I'm always a big defensive guy. And that's what this team does. This team suffocates you. And TJ said it, perfectly yesterday. They don't allow you to get started offensively. They just don't. And then, of course, you got the Bob at the end that's been playoff Bob. I mean that's all there is to it, and that's the key thing. And I joked about Edmonton having a lot of question marks going in. I heard, and I don't know who it was, but somebody said kind of midway through the game, Edmonton kind of has this look like they don't know what to do. And it's exactly what I kind of felt like at some point. You've tried everything you possibly can. You kind of just throw your hands up and you go, I don't know what to do. And that looked like Edmonton really the last 2 games.
Yeah, the jumbo Hattie from Sam Reinhart last night, 4 goals. And let's talk about last night's game specifically, because to me, there was 2 key turning points. Number 1 was the goal by Tkachuk at 19:13 of the first period. And that kind of seemed like it was a backbreaker. But we were talking to each other in the group text while we were watching the game. It's one of those things that, like, there was 2. It could have been a backbreaker. It looked like it was going to be a backbreaker, but it also looked very similar to game 4. The real turning point for me, why in the absolute hell did Stuart Skinner not glove that puck that led to the 3rd goal? And that's when the game was over. And again, you mentioned it yesterday. You talked about it. We know what wins in the NHL, especially at postseason time. A hot goaltender is the toughest thing to beat in sports when it comes to the postseason. I think Eddie Olczyk, and again, I can't laud the TNT coverage enough. I wish they had the Stanley Cup final every single year, but Olczyk said it last night. You had tired guys on the ice. You had guys that stopped as that puck was coming in, and that's a little bit of a mental fatigue kind of error there too. But you're assuming at that point, your goalie's going to glove that and at least get a whistle and let everybody catch their breath there. That puck just pops out there, and there he is again. TJ and General McDavid they both talked about the Sams, and Reinhart made him pay for it, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this Florida team is that it's constant pressure. The way that they forecheck and don't allow you to get out of the zone. And I mean, and we saw it. And I said, one of the comments I made was like, man, it seems like they get a lot of breakaways, and that's part of it. It's just that aggressiveness up at the top. And in essence, almost like Oklahoma City does, and we've seen with the Pacers, they make them start their offense so far out, and in this case here, it's in their end of the ice, and we saw it in one of the goals. It just takes 1 second, one little bobble. That first goal, one little bobble of the puck was all that it took for them to get an advantage, a 2-on-1, a little bit of a breakaway. And, Florida makes you pay. They make you pay the whole night, but they make you pay when you make silly turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, I at one point early on that first goal to Reinhardt, I mean, what a move he made, but a stupid ass turnover by Edmonton. And I think my comment to you guys was, I'm going to start calling these guys the Edmonton Pacers at this point. I mean, just the mental mistakes. I mean, when you look at the numbers from last night, 17 block shots for Florida, 15 for Edmonton, 5 takeaways for Florida, which they were all key takeaways. The face-off percentage, Florida again won the face-off percentage. Penalty minutes, 12-2 in favor of Edmonton, but there was no power plays. I mean, it was a quick game. I mean, if anything, if you're an Oiler fan last night, at least you died a quick, painful death, not a slow, agonizing one there. But when we look at turning points, I think we got to go back to game 2 of this series in the double overtime game that Marchand won for the Panthers in Edmonton. And then that was because if you look at this series, we were raving about how fantastic this series was through those first 2 games. Like, how did they top this now? We really didn't get a great series after that. I mean, Edmonton got the 1 win in game 4, but I mean, that was really, to me, that was the turning point of the series, was that double overtime game in game 2. And you don't look at it when a series is 1-1 in that point and go, oh, this could be a turning point. But when we get to now pull the camera lens back and look at it as a whole, that was really where probably the series was lost for Edmonton, because they never recovered from it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I thought game 4 for me, I thought was a turning point. The fact that, Florida goes up, they're up 2-1 in the series. They're up 3-0 in the game. Edmonton comes back. They take the lead. Florida ties it late. Edmonton wins that game. All of a sudden, we're thinking, oh, here we go, right? And I think that was a check for Florida. Florida's like, okay, wait a minute. We should have won that game. We should be up 3-1. We should be starting to think about, where we're going to be celebrating with that cup. And for me, from that point on, they outscored 10-3 in the last 2 games, dominant in game 5, dominant in game 6. Sometimes you just need that little check. And for me, that was the turning point in the series for me, because I just think Florida said, listen, we're better than this. We're better than this. And that was it. Because like you said, I wish I saw the picture, like 255 minutes. I think they led the series. I mean, that's dominance.
It was a record for time led.
I mean, you can't win a series like that. Let's just be honest. No. I mean, you can say, well, it was the goaltending, it was this guy, it was not really. I mean, that's really total team domination when you look at it overall.
Yeah, and again, we're going to focus a little bit on just the overview of the offseason tomorrow. We know the biggest name on the block, if you will, is Sam Bennett. But I can also tell you, if you think Sam Bennett's leaving Florida, you're put down the pipe, because it ain't going to happen. And we look at guys like Brad Marchand now. Like, what does he do? Does he really want to go somewhere that hasn't won at this point in his career? I mean, these guys are having fun. They're going out to dinner every night together throughout the whole postseason, and Zito's picking up the tab on most of those dinners. Like, all these guys, they all live around each other. And Jackie Redmond said this after that game 4 that you just alluded to. You would think blowing a 3-0 lead and losing that game, and a lot of teams, that would be kind of a crushing blow. And what were they doing in the Panthers locker room? They were busting each other's balls. They were just, yeah, okay, we'll go right back out in the next game. We know what we have to do. And here's the scary thing. And the talk because everybody needs to, now that we have, the D word out, the dynasty word out, and I think it's very appropriate in this situation. The talk is going to be, we've seen it now for the past couple of weeks. Well, there's no estate tax in Florida. And blah. You know what? Nobody gave a shit when Florida sucked, when Tampa sucked, before Vegas was even a thing. Nobody cared about that when nobody wanted to play in those organizations. It's a non-factor. You go somewhere where you want to win. Yes, if you can make a couple more dollars, sure, why not? But at the same time, like, culture has more to do with anything than anything in sports. And you saw it with the Patriots on their run. You saw it with the Warriors on their run. You're seeing it with the Panthers on their run. Guys are going, especially guys later in their career, they're going to take less money to play somewhere legitimately that they have a chance to compete. Here's the scary thing. And for those of you down in the Sunrise area, and those of you diehard Panthers fans, don't crucify me because I haven't been able to catch a game at the bank. I think I said this to TJ. Sometimes it gets confusing when we're watching these games together at like specific things about tomorrow's show or the next day's show. Sometimes I think we're in the group text and we're not. But they showed an aerial shot of Amerant Bank Arena, and we know that the talk for all these years was they built it in the wrong damn place. Well, obviously, for winning, nobody cares. They're going to go. And people have filled that building for the last couple of years. There's nothing around there. If this team starts to develop the area around there on top of that, you're just printing more money, and you're printing more money, and you're printing more money. And who in the hell wouldn't want to live in Florida playing a game like hockey? And you see it today with the party that is still ongoing. As far as I know, the Cup has not made it to the Atlantic Ocean yet, but it is still early. But Bill Zito's comment, and I think this is what reigns the biggest to me right now, when he was interviewed for the job, making it a destination franchise, and that is exactly what they've done.
Yeah, and I think a lot with Brad Marchand. I mean, I think he felt he had it pretty good in Boston. I mean, he really did. I mean, it was a good organization. He won a Stanley Cup there. I mean, beloved in the city. Still, I think, even today, a little beloved. Just some jealousy there. But I mean, to see his reaction to go again, you couldn't have told me a year ago that Marchand would be a Florida Panther. I mean, talk about, I mean, I joke about it, but just not liked. I mean, villain number one on their list. That was just not a place that you would think he was going to go. But that's the kind of thing. And they said it. Brad Marchand's the kind of guy that, and I think you said it, he's that player. You hate him when you have to play against him, but when he's on your team, you absolutely love this guy because of what he does. And we saw it in the finals. I mean, yeah, he's getting up there in age, but man, he is still so effective. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the off season now. But I'm excited to see. I mean, I like those things. I like dynasties. Dynasties are fun to me. I like when teams dominate. I think it's good for sports because it builds a little that animosity is what it does, and that's what you want sports to do. I mean, you want that animosity. Now, boy, talk about a huge target. On the Florida Panthers, it's there. So
yeah, and so one more thing before we transition here, but you mentioned Marchand and being public enemy number one in Florida. One of the cool things last night in the post game coverage was they had the whole team around the cup, and they were all searching for his name on the cup from when he won in Boston, and it was just cool to see like the guys' faces light up when they found his name on the cup. When we take one little quick glance, and I made the comment early in the postseason when we were talking here that it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we were to see both of these teams in the Cup final again. And the way too early odds are always out instantly after a championship is won. And the Panthers, Oilers, and Avs are all listed as co-favorites at 7-1 to win the Cup next year. And I don't think you can look at this in any way, shape, or form. And again, we're going to get more into this tomorrow, but I don't think you can look at this right now, the state of the league, the state of the Eastern Conference, period. Just cut it off right there.
Yeah.
There is Florida, and there is a significant drop to the next team down. Carolina's been in the mix. They can't get over the hump. Toronto is Toronto. We know that story. What happens in Boston? The Rangers are reshuffling. I mean, there's a lot of teams jockeying to get in line to have a shot to take down Florida. And we always say it. You just said it yourself. Sports are better when there's villains. When there's a team you hate, and there's a team, especially for Eastern Conference hockey fans right now, jealousy, hatred, despising every other, the superlative guy is off today. Otherwise, he'd have a couple of other good ones here. But yeah, it's great for the sport. I think this was a banner year for the sport of hockey entirely. And the cool thing that I like about the NBA and what the NHL have is the way their calendar sets up. We don't have to wait long to see the moves start being made, because you've got the draft and you've got free agency that come up very quickly after this. So fun stuff there. Feel free to comment along. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show everywhere but Snapchat. We're not on Snapchat because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. A lot of fallout from the U.S. Open last week as JJ Spawn, again, your U.S. Open champion. And it's funny because, and I'll get to Scotty Scheffler's comments up in Cromwell as he gets ready for the Travelers here in just a minute, but a lot of people critiquing the U.S. Open from last weekend. Mac, what are your thoughts as we have a chance to go into it?
Well, my thought is this. It's the U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm.
It's billed as the toughest, always the toughest course you're going to play. Not you, we are going to play, but the toughest course all year long. It's without a doubt. That's what it's billed at. It's the toughest test in golf. You win that, you deserve that victory. It is 4 days of analyzing every shot that you take. It is physically and mentally exhausting. It's what it's supposed to be. It's the U.S. Open. And all these guys that are saying, oh, well, we didn't have Scotty Scheffler, we have J.J. Spawn, we didn't have this, that. That's the whole point. The whole point of the U.S. Open is that, and not in theory, in reality, Mike, you and I can go and try to qualify to play in that tournament.
I've done it once. Failed miserably, but I've done it once.
That's the whole point. It's an open championship, and it's supposed to be for everybody. Same with the Open Championship. But I mean, that's the idea behind it. And the fact that it's on a difficult course, and I make this comment. It's like, when I play golf, and I just played a new course here in town, and some course like in Vegas, there's nothing. When I was playing in Vegas, there's nothing. You just hit the ball. It doesn't matter where you hit the ball. You're going to be able to find the ball, and you're going to hit your second shot. Here, I might not find my second shot. I might be behind trees. I might be, who the heck knows where I'm going to be. And so I have to think about it a little bit. Like, maybe this is probably not the best place to hit the driver. Maybe I hit a 3-wood. Maybe I hit a 5-wood. I'm going to lose a little distance, but I'm going to put it in the fairway. And, these guys have it's that baseball mentality. We're going to swing for the fences. Everything's driver. How about tooling it back a little bit and hit the ball in the fairway so you don't hit the rough? You're good golfers. You can control the ball. So, I mean, that's my thing. It's like, think about it a little bit more. Don't hit your drive 350 yards. Maybe it's 310. Maybe it's 290. Change it a little bit. You've got to change your game a little bit from course to course. And I kind of just I love the fact that, and I said it, U.S. Open, you always find somebody kind of sneaks up on you at the U.S. Open. It's because I think someone like J.J. Spawn's like, okay, I know that I've got to be really, really good this week. I'm going to take a little bit off. I'm going to make sure if I get a bogey, it's a bogey, not a double bogey. I love the U.S. Open. Like I said, I love to see the frustration on the golfers. That's what golf is. It's 22, 23 under doesn't impress me. That doesn't impress me. It's like, I get it. You can do it. I like the challenges of hard, tough golf courses.
Yeah. And, I think a couple of things can be true here. When you watch the U.S. Open, you cannot have the big names in there because the courses are really tough. And you can have drama but the scores are close to even par or slightly over par, and it's not great for viewership. Both things in that situation can be true. And at the US Open, most of the time they are true. And you brought up the fact of like, hey, maybe I don't hit driver here, and this, that, and the other thing. When I made my ill-fated attempt at trying to go pro, pipe dream, the guy that was helping me with my swing out here, we would go out and play our 9 holes, then we would go to the range, and then we'd play, a couple of the tricky holes that I was struggling with. And he would always tell me, he's like, hey, yeah, you can drive the ball a long way. And back then when I had working shoulders, I could. But the one thing he would always say to me is that 10 or 15 yards extra you got off your drive here is actually hurting you more than it's helping you. And that's the thing. And I'm glad that you brought up the 22, 23 under thing. Scotty Scheffler talking in Cromwell ahead of the Travelers, which is coming up tomorrow. He was asked today about being 22 under and not winning last year if the course was too easy. And I think what he said is something that golf fans need to remember. And he goes, golf is a funny sport. You would never say out watching an NBA game that I wish these guys couldn't dunk. And, people often, us duffers, we want these guys, you see it all the time on X and everything else. One of us, when you see a pro hit a bad shot or duff a chip or something like that. And he goes, people get too caught up in what the winning score is. Defining a proper test, to me, is when good shots get rewarded and bad shots are punished. And you can sit here and look at TPC at River Highlands where they're playing this week and go, well, the guys are going to shoot 22 under, and that's just not good golf. And he brought up the point 15, 16, and 17 specifically at River Highlands. That's a great finishing test. And he goes, birdies down the stretch are exciting. And I think that is part of it. Is there's so many casuals that only watch the majors. And when you do, and you see these guys and they're like, wow, these guys are even par, +2, shouldn't be in contention. Like, that was one of the more exciting US Open finishes I've seen in a long time. Last year's Open Championship was a fantastic finish. Even last year's US Open where Bryson won. I mean, you can't look at the score. It's like the people that read box scores and then they start talking about sports, and you can always tell who's actually watching these games and who's not. So I think what the TPC at River Highlands brings, and we're going to see this weekend, is like Scotty said, that 15, 16, 17. Yeah, you can birdie those holes, but like each hole, he listed a specific spot where if you go here, you can't get to the green. If you go long here, you're going to have an uphill chip into a downhill green. Like, you can't just look at the score and let that define what you just saw.
No, I mean, we see it, like I use the Waste Management. Waste Management has some really good finishing holes too. But everyone gets caught up on the par 3, but you get after that. There's the drivable par 4. I mean, those are the holes that are fun, that are different. But what I like about the PGA is I like the stories of the PGA. To me, that's cool because PGA it reminds me of baseball, where baseball is you're a high school kid, you get drafted, you go to rookie ball, you work your way up, A, double A, triple A, and you finally when you get that call, it's worthwhile. Not that it's not in basketball or football, but you got guys that are just going there. But you got guys that, I love that story. Somebody who's been in the minor leagues 10 years and they get that call up. You figure you've been working your whole life since T-ball, to get to major leagues, and you finally get there. I mean, what an absolute story. And for someone like JJ Spawn, yeah, a lot of the regular people who follow the PGA Tour know him, but if you're just a major follower, you probably don't. But that's a cool story for him. And like I said, that's what I like about the PGA on a weekly basis. These guys who are grinding it out, who go there and are just driving in cars trying to make it to the next week. That's I mean, I think it's fun because I don't have to do it, but that's the stories that I like. That's what I like about the PGA, is to see those guys that get those victories, and then all of a sudden now the next 2 years they can play in whatever they want, and it just frees them up a little bit. And if you think about it, Scotty Scheffler was kind of in that role. We didn't know too much about Scotty Scheffler a couple years ago.
Nope.
He had gotten close, And it took that one win. It took a breakout win, and all of a sudden, boom! He had the pedigree. He was a good young golfer, but it was a battle for him on the PGA course. That's the best part, is to see those stories and see those guys succeed. And we kind of see the opposite. Because this is one of the things, you see like the Justin Thomas and the Jordan Spieth, they were like everything, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, you start to wonder, like, has their best golf passed them by? Ricky Fowler, throw him in the bucket too. It's kind of like, that's the thing about golf. It changes so quickly, and you got to kind of, when you got a chance, grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike versus Matt coming up today, 4:30 on the West Coast, 7:30 on the East Coast, at all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Update: Mac's got a little bit of a lead, 225 to 178. He's won all 3 majors. He's won the first 2 stages. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. Mike versus Mac works like this. We split up the PGA Tour calendar into 4 segments. Obviously, the 4th one is the FedEx Cup playoffs. We can only use a golfer once per segment. So if you're seeing that sometimes and wondering how the hell are you picking these guys, or why are you picking these guys, well, there's a reason for it. So our picks for this week, and this is a short segment stage, if you will, for us, because there's only 7 tournaments and it culminates at the Open Championship. So I've got a little bit of work to do to catch up with Matt there. But the final piece of golf news that we want to pass along, I had 3 sports wishes at the beginning of the year, and one of them has been fulfilled. Jay Monahan, guy who's in charge of golf, will be exiting stage left in 2026 when his contract expires. I think that's great for golf, and he's being replaced by new PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolap, who spent 2 decades with the NFL as their chief media and business officer. Some of his initial quotes: relentless focus on growing the tour and making it better, honoring the game and tradition, but not being bound by the game and the tradition. And for those of you that are wondering who this guy is, well, he was a guy that's been on the short list of potential Roger Goodell successors in the NFL. Now, Goodell is under contract for a while. It doesn't seem like he's going anywhere anytime soon. But here's a guy that comes in with a great, fresh new viewpoint. Probably, as he said in some of his initial press conference comments so far, and again, he just met with the players here, so this is all pretty fluid, but I think Xander Schauffele probably highlighted what Rolat can do here in the best light. As he said, in the NFL, they don't sit still. They evolve their product consistently, and that's something that we're going to get from Rolat here. So I got one of my wishes in sports. I'm not going to talk about the other ones publicly, but if you followed us long enough, I think you know what they are. I'm excited for a new voice and a new direction here, because I think when you bring in a guy from the NFL that was the chief media and business officer, that title makes me excited, because some of the coverage that we see in golf is part of the issue right now. There's new technology that we're not using enough to make it something that gravitates to the casuals, Mac, and brings more of the casuals in on a consistent basis. I'm really excited about this move for what it's going to do to the tour and the future of the tour.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good. I think they need a breath of fresh air in there. There's a lot of things that happened over the last couple of years, a lot of things that are coming up. I think, a lot of those live golfers who signed those initial contracts are coming up, and it's going to be interesting to see if any of them try to get back into the PGA Tour. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now with the PGA.
Little people, big world, to echo you got Ross's comments. I have no idea what that even is, but yeah, I think that's, the obvious is those guys on the live tour and how they're welcomed back, and Roll Up also mentioned in his comments, making sure the competition is at its highest point. And I know you're not a fan of the signature events. I don't think they're going anywhere based on his comments. And I think it's basically because it's a way to try and get the best players on the tour playing in the events, which is something that we really needed to do. And the PGA Tour is unique in the fact that it's owned by the players. And when you have a, essentially like a 40 something plus week calendar, you're going to pick and choose the events to make sure you're in the right standing for the FedEx Cup playoffs, which have already been changed. This was before this move was made, and we'll get into some of that in the next couple of weeks. But exciting stuff here. Again, our Mike versus Mac, 4:30 on the West Coast, 7:30 on the East Coast. Is today we get this kind of awkward pause, if you will, because there is no championship action on tonight. We resume that tomorrow night with Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton, as of this moment right now, sounds like a game time decision. That obviously has a massive impact on what happens there. We'll get more into that on tomorrow's show. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation before we transition into Major League Baseball and Rafi Devers' debut in childlike uniforms last night?
Hey, don't forget about College Baseball World Series. Some great games. A lot of that game yesterday, the ending between Louisville and Oregon State, that ninth inning was just bonkers. And we had a no-hitter the day before. Listen, you gotta check it out. You gotta check it out.
Right now, the Chanticleers red hot right now. They're up 6-0 in the bottom of the third on Louisville. Arkansas, the Omahogs, and Gage Wood, the no-hitter you referred to this morning. Yes. They're in action against LSU tonight there. So speaking of baseball, let's look at Major League Baseball. And Rafi Devers makes his debut for the San Francisco Giants last night. They lose to the Guardians 3-2. Devers at DH, because I'm sure a lot of people were very interested to see how that was going to go. 2 for 5 with an RBI, struck out twice. Robbie Ray takes his second loss of the season for the Giants and was probably the most pedestrian Robbie Ray has looked for the Giants this season. 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned, gave up a homer, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. So the Giants back in action tonight against the Guardians. The Red Sox, they lose 8-0 last night. 1-1 now in the post-Rafi era. And Walker Buehler, Mac, is a guy we've talked about. And I made the comment when they got Walker Buehler, it was a move for October more than it was a move for the regular season. That being said, 3 1/3, 8 hits, 8 runs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. The big blow, the grand salami from the big dumper last night. Walker Buehler is struggling at a level that we haven't seen Walker Buehler struggle at.
Yeah, I mean, the walks are what killed him last night. He's just really inconsistent. He had one. His last outing was really good, and that's been the only really good outing he's had really all year. He keeps saying the right thing. He keeps saying it. They paid me all this money. I kind of suck. But at some point, they've got enough young arms. I'm all for, Walker Buehler's a good name, but he's not pitching well. If that's going to get me a prospect, then at this point, he's got to pitch better. He hasn't been good. That's all there is to it. He's been poor. He's not even a 4 or 5 starter at this point. He's becoming a bullpen guy.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at some of the division leaders here and give you our thoughts on who's on the sturdiest ground and the shakiest ground. But, some more interesting stuff. And anytime there's a big trade in any sport, you start to hear some things after. Interesting as far as the progression of the Devers trade to the Giants. And the critique, again, as I mentioned yesterday on Farhan Zaidi when he was in charge of the Giants, was that he was tentative and indecisive when it came to making big moves. Well, enter Buster Posey, and Buster Posey finally gets the Giants a big bat that they've been lacking for a long time. And the interesting thing that I saw yesterday, Giants GM Zach Minnesade recalled that he had been in touch with the Red Sox, but they were talking about another player, and a player that really wasn't of great significance. And, they agreed that the player they were pursuing wasn't worth pursuing. Posey had been monitoring the situation and the reports from Boston and just decided to enter the thought of, what about Devers? 4 weeks according to this source, that these negotiations were going on to agree on the player package. In the early stages, the Red Sox did insist on Bryce Eldridge, who we've talked about a few times on this show, and the Giants basically said, go pound sand, which is what they should have. The talks gained momentum. Then that's when Posey went to Giants chairman Greg Johnson. Interesting that they had already talked, and it makes me wonder who the hell they were already talking about, a player of not significant value. But you had some interesting thoughts before we got on the air here. And as a Red Sox fan, and I think your exact words, and I'm going to let you run with this, is no athlete leaves the state of Boston, or the state of Boston, the city of Boston,
right.
Without some shrapnel. And that's exactly what happened here. And now that we sit here on Wednesday from a trade that happened on Sunday, have your thoughts changed on Devers and the situation with the Red Sox?
Yeah, I mean, my point is, now he's saying, well, I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll play wherever I needed to play, and it's kind of one of those things. It's it's starting to leave like a bad taste in my mouth. It's kind of like, so you will play first base, and so my thinking is, if I'm a teammate, and I get it. Here's the thing. Pro sports, nothing is guaranteed. You're not guaranteed anything. I mean, you bring in a starting pitcher. The starting pitcher doesn't do well. He gets moved to the bullpen. It's the way that it happens. And not that Rafael Devers was playing bad, but let's take a look at last year. Why didn't Rafael Devers play a whole lot last year? He was injured. Okay. How did he get injured? Well, he got injured playing third base. So here's the idea from the Red Sox standpoint. Listen, we want you to be part of our future, and in order for you to be your best part, the best thing that you bring to us is offense. So we're going to make you a DH, and so you just have to worry about hitting, and he did that. But as a teammate, it's kind of funny. Wilyer Abreu came out today and said, "Hey, I'll do whatever you want. Wherever you want to play me, play me." And I'm like, but in reality, that's the kind of guy that you want to have. But I don't know. I mean, from Devers' standpoint, you can say, yeah, he was hurt, he was lied to. Put me in a situation in any job anywhere in the world where you haven't been lied to. Okay, it doesn't exist. I mean, management's going to say different things to just about anybody to get you to do something, and it happens. And yeah, I'm sorry you weren't able to play first base, but why couldn't you have been the teammate and step up and say, you know what, we just lost our first baseman. The best thing for this team is for me to play first base, and he didn't. And again, I kind of joked with you. Well, I'm not going to go there because that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, leave that.
I just don't get it. I mean, if you, I'm gonna backstep from that one because that'll cause more problems. But listen, if you really truly are a team player, I mean, don't you sacrifice? Isn't that part of what you do? Isn't being part of a team player sacrificing sometimes for your own benefit? I'm kind of turning on this. I mean, I was really mad at the Red Sox organization. I didn't understand it. The more I see it, the more I hear it. I'm starting to turn a little bit and say, you know what? He probably wasn't the right fit for the Red Sox right now. I mean, you don't, especially with all those young guys, you don't want that. You don't want that kind of attitude seeping through the clubhouse. Boston is hard enough place to play as it is. You don't need that.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time when it comes to coaches, and sometimes an organization just needs a new voice. And I think the same works from a player standpoint. And obviously, we've kind of gone into what we know from what we're allowed to see and hear and read, and the people we know that we can talk to. Sometimes a player just needs to change the scenery as well, and hopefully for the Giants' sake, because they're taking on a lot in this situation, that it works out for Devers. I mean, he didn't take long to find Triple's alley last night, lace the ball out in the outfield. That was where he got his RBI and his double last night. But again, the Giants lose. So let's look at some of these division leaders here, Mac. We talked about the wild card situation yesterday. You got the Yankees at 42-30. They're up 2.5 in the East. The Tigers 47-27, up 9.5 in the Central. The Astros 42-31, up 4.5. Mets 45-28. They're up 2. The Cubs 45-28. They're up 6.5, and the Dodgers 45-29. They're up 3.5 in the jumbled top of the NL West. I'm going to ask you a question before I give you my thoughts on it. Of those 6 division leaders, which team is on the shakiest ground in their positional lead over the competition behind them?
I'm going to say the New York Yankees. I'm starting to really worry. I mean, I didn't pick the Yankees as a playoff team, even with the moves that they made, and I thought they made a lot of really good moves, but I still thought they were a little short. Then the loss, of Garrett Cole, who I think has already sent Devers a card. I'm sure he did. But I mean, it's been Judge, 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 and Judge, and all of a sudden Judge has kind of gone into a little slump, and this team can't hit. I think the Yankees offensively lack some continuity in that lineup. I like their bullpen still. I really do. Their starters have been good, but I can't believe I have to say this, but I don't like the New York Yankees lineup. I just don't, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, the Yankees actually made history
here's the thing.
last night.
I don't know that the Yankees.
They made history last night. They're the first American League team to strike out 10-plus times in 3 consecutive games without scoring a run. They have not scored since Saturday. The Yanks haven't scored since Saturday. They get shut out again by the Halos last night. I agree with you there that I think they're on a little bit of shaky ground right now because, and we've talked about it, there's been several instances this year where the Yankees have hit 4 home runs in a game, and their offense can put up big numbers and they can do it in a hurry. We were all kind of leery on the Yankees going into the season because of the pitching injuries and the questions amongst their starting staff. And this version of the Yankees doesn't seem as aggressive as past versions of the Yankees to go out and make as many big moves during the season. So I think they're on shaky ground. I'm going to give you another team that I think is on equally shaky ground. And it's probably the last team that most people would think of. It's the other team in New York, the Mets. They're 45-28, 6-4 in their last 10. They lost. They have a 1-game losing streak. That's not even a streak right now if you go back to Major League. But I think that the Mets are on the shakiest ground. Not necessarily because they're not playing well. It's the pressure that's coming up from behind them. It's the Phillies. And we talked about this in which we were trying to predict the date in June or early July where Dave Dombrowski was going to go, I've seen enough. I know what we need. Nick Castellanos makes some comments the other night when he gets pulled out of a game. He sat last night. And I think this is an interesting spot for the Mets. There's a lot of talk and a lot of pressure on the Mets because of the Soto deal, a very damn good lineup. They're still, I think, pitching without arguably their best pitcher, at least most consistent one, and Sean Manaea hasn't pitched for them yet this year. But the Phillies are getting hot. The Phillies are coming up from behind them. The Braves, I mean, can we talk about what Ronnie Acuna Jr. has done already in the brief time he's been back? And yes, the Braves are way, way out of the mix right now. But the Braves are still a good baseball team that can put heat on the top of that division. The Nationals seemingly can't beat the damn Rockies right now, and the Marlins, who gives a shit about that? But I think the pressure that the Mets are going to feel all year long from the Phillies coming up from behind them makes the Mets a little shaky, only having a 2-game lead. With as bad as the Phillies and the Braves have played so far this year, I think we need to identify and look at where the Mets are right now and go, they're not very stable here at the top of their division. It is still early. There's a lot of baseball left, but that was the one that jumped out at me. I agree with what TJ said yesterday. I'm selling the entire American League West. None of those teams strike any fear. I know the Astros, again, are doing it. My biggest surprise before I get to yours of these division leaders, ironically, is a team that I was very high on at the beginning of the year, and it's the Cubs. Well, how can they be a surprise to me? Here's why. The injury to Steele and they're running away with the Central like I said they were going to. They have a 6.5 game lead. They've won 3 in a row. And I think the surprise to me is I didn't know how quickly and how explosively this offense would click for them. They lead the majors in run differential. They can hit top to bottom. And they're a team that if they can't get the big pitcher in there, and it's a tough place to play, we know that, Wrigley Field, and you play at the Great American Bandbox within the division. You're not playing in pitcher-friendly parks. This is a team that could go into the postseason with the sole intent of, hey, we're just going to beat you 10-9 every game of the playoffs. Obviously, you're going to run into some resistance at some point there. But I think that's the biggest surprise for me is I figured the Cubs would run away with the division, but I thought it was going to be a little bit later before they did. Their offense is ridiculously clicking right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I'm a little bit surprised. I really wasn't high on the Cubs. I really thought the Brewers were still going to be able to, and they're kind of hanging in there a little bit. But this is a fun Cubs team to watch. Pete Crow Armstrong is amazing. PCA is just, I mean, he is so much fun to watch. They do it with speed. They do it with power. This is a good ball club, and I think the biggest thing is that the Cubs are a team that are going to add. We know they're going to find something in the trade deadline to help them. Yeah, and you know, you look, how do they stack up against, you know, the Mets or the Dodgers? I mean, I think pretty good. I mean, I actually like their lineup more than I like the Dodgers lineup. You know, I really do. I mean, this is a team that is really, like you said, has surprised me. I still think the Astros to me are surprised. I mean, they just keep doing it. I don't know if it's just because the West is so bad or it's just something about Houston. They just continue to win. I don't know how they do it. I really got to spend the next couple of days, I think, watching Houston play like a series and see how they do this. But it's amazing to me. But I mean, I think Chicago and Houston are the two big surprises for me.
Cubs and Brewers in action tonight. Jacob Mizorowski on the mound for the Brew Crew. His major league debut was, and a lot of Brewers fans said this, so I'm going to take their words. It was so Brewers. He's got a no-hitter going through 5 and kind of steps off the mound after throwing a pitch weird and tweaks his ankle and has to come out. Their second-round pick.
Oh, it looked like he broke it.
In 2022. Yeah, it was weird. And Taillon has pitched great for the Cubs this year. You mentioned the Dodgers and Padres playing their annual game of beanball last night. That's going to be one you're going to want to watch tonight as well. And, you know, this came out right as we were going on the air today. One more piece of baseball news to pass along before we do some liquid locks and get up on out of here for the day. Tampa Bay Rays are in advanced talks. Principal owner Stu Sternberg to sell the franchise to a group led by a Florida-based residential developer. I'm going to butcher this. Patrick Zalupski, a home builder in Jacksonville, has been identified as a potential lead buyer in a deal that values the team at about $1.7 billion. He's executed a letter of intent to purchase the team per Sportico, which is the first reporting on the talks. Sternberg bought the Rays in 2004 for $200 million. So that seems like it's got a little bit of smoke there. I think in all reality, that's a good thing for Rays fans. Stu Sternberg is on my list of John Fisher's and Rob Manfred's and Jay Monahan's and this, that, and the other thing. So something to keep an eye on there for the Rays. Liquid locks, Mac. I got a little greedy last night. We were 4-0 last Wednesday on our liquid locks. We put out 6 of them last night. You had 2. I put out 3, and TJ put out 1. Well, TJ is 2-0 in liquid locks. You are now, let's see here. You are now 2-1 in liquid locks. Marchie only got 2 shots on goal last night. You had him over 2.5. But you did have the under 6.5, which was looking a little dicey there. With
sweated that one out.
The goal of Palooza. I'm
like, could you play the third period with the goalie, please?
Yeah, no shit, right? Last night I went a whopping 0 for 3 in my liquid locks. So I got greedy. I sunk our ship. So I'll get us started here tonight. I'm not going to be excessively greedy. I am going to look at one specific, if I can pull up my computer the proper way here. Tonight, this Washington Colorado series has been kind of interesting. The Rockies just absolutely wearing out the Nationals that have really kind of struggled over the last week. The Rocks now up to 16-57 tonight. German Marquez and Mitchell Parker on the bump. You've got 6.62 ERA for Marquez, 4.84 ERA for Parker. I'm going to play that game over 9 runs there. And I'm also going to go back to the well last night, as I did with the Texas Rangers. This team offensively at some point has to wake up. I'm going to take the Rangers on the money line against Chris Bubich of the Royals. I am a child. I do like saying his name. He's been fantastic for the Royals this year. So Rangers on the money line, Corbin on the bump for the Rangers. I'm playing the opposite regression angle here. This Texas lineup at some point just has to have that go crazy game. They had a good offensive performance last week, but Rangers on the money line, Nationals and Rock Bottoms over 9 runs. Those are my liquid locks. Have at it, my friend.
All right. Well, I told you I'm gonna sneak a peek at the Houston Astros tonight. They're playing the Athletics. Let's just get it right. The Athletics organization. And I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go with first baseman Christian Walker for my liquid locks.
Are you calling Seawalk for a home run at Coors Field of California? Is that your official pick?
Yep, that's my official pick.
I might just put those 3 together today. All right, so Max got Walker for a home run. I've got the Rangers on the money line, Washington and Colorado over 9. Tomorrow we'll take a look at the impending and very quickly upcoming off season in the NHL. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals Game 6. Is that where this train on the NBA season finishes? And we'll have a couple other things. A lot of day baseball tomorrow. Plenty of stuff going on, man. It is a great time to be a sports fan in the sports world right now. TJ will be back with us tomorrow. So for everybody behind the scenes pushing the buttons, for Vegas Mac, for TJ, I'm Mike. Talk to you tomorrow.